It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another edition of the Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Looking like a screensaver out there, Alan. What in the world is going on?
I'm in Santa Monica. Got the pier that way. Got the mountains that way. You guys can see the beach.
We can.
Working hard, busy day. That's legitimate. Spent most of my Uber drive here writing. But, big game, Steelers-Rams yesterday. Did not go the way that you and I expected, but in some ways went very much according to the Steelers script for this season. So excited to talk to you about that. And maybe we can talk SoCal as well.
Yeah. I wanted to mention first thing, because we're going to talk a lot about this game, just to get something out of the way here. We both said that we didn't think it was going to take Gunnar Olszewski long to find another landing spot. He ends up with the Giants practice squad, which actually, now thinking about it, I predicted he was going to end up back in New England. But how many players similar to Gunnar do the Giants already? Every receiver on that roster is pretty much a slot receiver that has some kick return capability. It's an interesting landing spot.
And also, every receiver on that roster is either hurt or not playing very well. So, yeah. I mean, that's a team that's needed wide receiver help. And I can remember going back to the draft, I really thought they would do more to add to it. They didn't get Jalen Hyatt. But I thought they probably needed to do more. And with injuries to Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, that's certainly becoming evident. But listen, I think we can say that the Gunnar Olszewski experiment in Pittsburgh was an abject failure, and that he did absolutely nothing productive, to use the word that was going around social media the other day. However, he's not that bad of a player. It was just a weird circumstance where he had 4 or 5 really just significantly negative plays out of, maybe 30 or 40 chances to impact the game after being a generally productive guy the rest of his career. So just a weird, it's the way things work sometimes. But best of luck to Gunnar and the Giants. And I think it's a good landing spot for him. Like you said, I was pretty sure that he would find somewhere else pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay, but let's talk about the players that are here in this game that did happen. First things first, obviously we felt like it was going to be this way leading up to, but in fact, Dan Moore starting at left tackle again. And I'll be honest, I was like, this could be a point of contention if this doesn't go well for him in this game. Not only did it not go poorly, he played really well, I thought, in this game.
Yeah, I kind of expected him to. That's not a very good defensive line outside of Aaron Donald. I understand that outside of Aaron Donald means outside of the best defensive player of the last decade. But, the guys that Dan Moore was regularly facing, the guys on the edge, are really not anybody that he should be too worried about. I thought he acquitted himself nicely. That's what I was expecting. As I said, I think when we were talking with Chris Carter on Thursday, I didn't think this would blow up in the Steelers' faces. I just thought it was a mistake to not go with the young guy when you had the opportunity to make a nice, clean, easy transition. But I think Dan Moore is a capable player, especially if you put him up against mediocre opposition. He usually does okay. It's not like he's been unplayably awful. I mean, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about whether or not Dan Moore could make the move to right tackle. We wouldn't bother to have that conversation if the guy was just so bad he could never play, right? I mean, he's a playable NFL player. It was just a place the Steelers were looking for an upgrade. I'm not sure that Broderick Jones would be an upgrade over Dan Moore right now. I mean, there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some mistakes. I think he has more talent in terms of run blocking, probably some work to do in terms of pass protection. In general, though, I think you're going to get about the same kind of play out of those two guys at this current moment. So I didn't think it was going to be a disaster, but I thought Dan Moore played better than he has, that's for sure.
The other guy along that offensive line that, people have kind of been really harping on is Mason Cole. And I thought that was another guy that, to me, now it very low bar to say that was his best game of the season, but I think he took a step significantly from how he looked out of the bye week.
Yeah, I thought that was his best game of the year, and he was playing against his best competition of the year, and Aaron Donald. And so I really thought that was a needed step for this offensive line. Isaac Seumalo and Cole together with Daniels thought really, and there were some plays where you just have to kind of say Aaron Donald got that one, but they were pretty few and far between. I think in general, the Steelers did what they were looking to do with that offensive line. They did a lot of two tight ends. We can talk about that more. But it was a team effort from that offensive line. Everyone was pulling their weight. And I think as the game went on, they got better. They looked really good run blocking in that second half. And it was a lot of that was that left side, Moore, Samalu, and Cole being connected. And I think that was really the best part of this line.
I'm glad you brought up the tight ends because I think that I was a little bit taken back today when I looked at the snap counts and saw how many Connor Hayward was playing compared to Darnell Washington. Hot Rod also mixing in there too, but Connor Hayward playing over 80% of the team's offensive snaps really took me by surprise.
Hot Rod, that's my guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think he's good and underappreciated.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, so actually we're giving away a story, SteelersNow.com. I wrote about this already. The story's done, but it's not going to go up until like 8 o'clock tonight. So if you're quick on the podcast trigger, and we are a little bit later than usual today because I'm 3 hours behind. If you're quick on the podcast trigger, if you're listening to this as soon as it comes out, you'll be ahead of the game here before the story even goes live at SteelersNow.com. But yeah, this was an unexpected change for me in two ways. Without Pat Freiermuth, we had actually talked about, I thought maybe the Steelers would want to go more 4 wide receiver than we've seen and spread LA out, make them play Darren Kendrick more than they did. Really, they went the other way. They went a little bit heavier. Connor Hayward played almost the entire game, 53 snaps, I believe, out of 59 for the offense. I mean, that's a ton. And then Darnell Washington played another 30. So, and Hot Rod had 10 or 11. And so, you have half of the game, basically, the Steelers spent in 2 tight end. That is by far the most we've seen them do that this year. And they did it without Pat Freiermuth being involved. I think that's a little bit of scouting against tendency, I would assume, was something they looked at when they did that self-study from the first half of the year to see how they can deploy guys differently. That's probably something that came out. And, I thought those guys did a really good job. Connor Hayward had, I think, just 2 catches, but both of them were big. One first down on, I believe, a third down in between 2 zones, and another one to set up the first and goal for Najee Harris's touchdown. I thought they were really productive in that time. They weren't just out there taking up space. They were accomplishing things. Rodney Williams had a nice block on the Harris touchdown. There was another one. It must have been Washington on the Warren touchdown. Like, they were productive. They did out there, and they didn't use Diontae Johnson nearly as much as he has. Guessing that was probably a little bit of a build-up thing where they didn't want to give him all the reps right away. So it was a nice little alignment of ideas there. Took me off guard. I didn't see that coming, but I think it really worked out well for the offense.
Yeah, tight end snaps, 51 Connor Hayward, 31 Darnell Washington, and 11 for Rodney Williams. I want to ask you, was that a product of how they felt like they matched up with the Rams, or is that you think, what they want to do offensively without Pat Freiermuth?
I think it's a little bit of matchup, a little bit of Diontae Johnson not yet being 100% in terms of conditioning, and then and so I don't know that we'll see the same splits. The Rams have a much more dangerous. The Jaguars have one good pass rusher in the other Josh Allen, as he is known. Yeah. Josh Allen linebacker version. He's a better pass rusher than anybody the Rams have, that's for sure. We'll see if they decide to do things differently to, maybe this is more of a Darnell Washington game, right? Because there's a lot more blocking involved if you're chipping a big edge rusher than a Rams edge unit that really, I think the Steelers probably could have sent Chooks and Dan Moore out there one-on-one all day long, all day, every snap and felt good about it. So there wasn't a need to go to the blocking tight end more than they did.
Yeah, and you mentioned Diontae Johnson coming back, and I want to talk about that. Him and George Pickens, that duo, what they were able to do. Each had 5 catches in this game. Pickens goes for 107, Diontae Johnson for 79 yards in this game. I don't know that tells the full story. I thought that they both looked really good. And obviously, we had talked about what Diontae Johnson would be able to open up. If you want to double team, George Pickens was still the one seeing a lot of double teams in this game, still seeing a ton of attention. And giving Diontae Johnson, actually, which, was the reverse side of how things were going last year. But what did you see from those two, how they're able to feed off each other, and what could that mean for this offense?
I did Derek's Dudes and Duds for SteelersNow.com today. That's available only to SteelersNow.com subscribers. Use promo code Allen10 to get 10% off, or allegedly maybe a little bit more than that. I've always been
maybe like 13-ish%.
Just iffy at math, so whatever. Derek, by the way, just welcomed his son to the world. Was
Yeah.
not with us this weekend. Congratulations, Derek and family, as he adds to his squad there. But so it was me. It was Alan's dudes and duds, and I made one of my dudes was Diontae Johnson and George Pickens together, and my dud was Diontae Johnson and George Pickens because as great as they were as receivers, as a tandem, the way they attacked the defense, the way they played off one another in coverage, the way they got each other open, it was awesome. They also had 3 personal foul penalties between the two of them that cost the Steelers. I did the math in the article now. 7, 40, 50, 58 yards, I think it was. 58 yards of penalties, those 3 guys. Just, and for all 2 taunts and a boneheaded blocking violation by George Pickens, just stuff that can happen to erase a whole bunch of positivity. We were talking, they gained 180 yards between the two of them. They gave back almost a third of it in penalties. You can't do that, obviously, and I think it's you hope it's just an asterisk. You hope it's not something you see continue. It hasn't been something that we've seen from those guys in the past, so you have reason to believe so. But I do think it kind of tempers the, oh man, gin and juice are back kind of excitement that you might be having if your star receivers didn't have 70 some odd yards of penalties.
Well, yeah, and what's funny, you mentioned the blocking one. Diontae would have been over 100 yards in this game receiving as well, if not because he was the recipient of that play, if it coming back on the George penalty. So, but yeah, just as a receiver, I thought that they looked really good. I had talked about even on weeks where it doesn't show in the box score, I felt like it was very much the case that George Pickens had taken a year 2 leap this year. I thought his game has started to become more of a well-rounded game as opposed to just, hey, run deep down the field and make a contested catch this year. And I think the addition of Diontae Johnson to this offense is going to really showcase that.
The other thing I really liked from George Pickens is that he did not have a great first half. He had that penalty, right? He also had a play where it was a bad throw by Kenny, but he really kind of short-armed one there. And he was sitting down. And so, I mean, we can take 2 seconds to explain what happens. There's a middle of the field safety on his post. So he's not going to run directly at that defender and run himself into more coverage. He's going to come out of his break and kind of stop and sit in that weak spot in the zone. And when he turned out of his break and looked, the ball wasn't coming, and he kind of gave up on the route, right? At that point, he just kind of stopped and was like, oh, it's not coming to me. And then Kenny threw it, and he didn't really get going again to where the ball was. He didn't make a very good effort on it. Just like a little bit of a miscommunication, and then a little bit of an effort thing. But it would have been easy for those negative things to build into frustration for George. We've seen him be that kind of emotional guy on the sideline before. Remember, there's been a couple of times where whether it was Diontae or Mike Tomlin or somebody had to kind of calm him down on the sideline. Allen Robinson, I remember did it once in training camp. There was none of that from George in this game. He just got back to it, did his thing, and kept being a productive player. I think that shows a lot of growth for him individually, not just in terms of the stats and the X's and O's, but kind of growing up as a player a little bit. You still don't want the negativity, but it's a big deal when you can let that negativity, when you can stop it and not let it continue throughout the rest of the game, where you just end up with a whole clunker of an afternoon. I thought he did a really good job of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was much needed, obviously, with the offense coming alive in the second half. And Alan, it's something like everything that we've talked about with Kenny Pickett, recently as last week, we were talking about why you can't be fully in or fully out. And he gives us another example to use in this football game. Basically perfect in the second half, really in the fourth quarter when the offense came to life there, almost 200 yards of offense in the fourth quarter alone. But we don't have an answer to this, but what did you see in this game from Kenny Pickett specifically in this fourth quarter, once again, be able to give the Steelers a W?
I mean, even in that very drive, right? They get the ball after the missed field goal. His first 2 passes are 2 dumb checkdowns. I believe it's 1 to Harris and 1 to Warren for a net total of 0 yards. They're facing.
But then the fourth quarter starts.
But then the fourth quarter comes in. Kenny Pickett turns into a werewolf, half man, half beast. In the fourth quarter, he just goes out and attacks, and he doesn't throw another incompletion the whole rest of the game. It is beyond rational thought. There was a caller into the KDKA post-game show that talked about like some Freaky Friday kind of like person swap deal. I think it might be a werewolf. He might be a fourth quarter werewolf where just, some werewolves, the full moon comes out. For Kenny Pickett, it's when the quarter indicator on the scoreboard says 4. He just turns into a different guy. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. I've tried to ask them about it. I'm 100% sure they're sick of me asking about it. And it's great because that's when you really need it. Like you like that problem so much better than the inverse, right? Nobody wants a guy that can't close a game. It would be a lot easier on him and everybody if they could find a way to start a game the way they're finishing one. And I don't think anybody has any answers as to how to make that happen right now.
I mean, he jumps from 32nd in passer rating in quarters 1 through 3 to 5th, going from 75.9% passer rating to 102.8 passer rating. And his yards per attempt go from 6 to 10.1, which is the highest yards per attempt in the fourth quarter.
I don't know. Do you have any theories? I've got nothing.
I don't.
About how to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, like the Steeler fan tinfoil hat thing is he's not listening to the offensive coordinator. We know that that's not the case, but realistically,
the Najee touchdown run wasn't audible. I believe he audibled. I don't know what he audibled out of, but he audibled into that Najee Harris touchdown run. So there was a real audible in this game, and it resulted in a touchdown. Real one. I don't know if Matt Canada celebrated it or not, though. I don't know. I can't.
He celebrated the Jalen Warren one for sure, and I think that it was like a point of emphasis. Like I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Surprised he didn't just point at the camera. That would have been a very Matt Canada thing to do. Just be like, "Yes, here's me celebrating."
Yeah. And then I want to talk about just in general before we switch sides here is the run game, the way that they came on as well to be able to kind of ice this game. I know that, obviously the spots of the QB sneak at the end of the game is going to be a talking point and everything like that. But for them to take the ball with about 5 minutes left and not give the football back and the way that they were able to run the ball in general in the fourth quarter, what were your thoughts on the way that they were opening up lanes and the way that they performed?
I really think that when we talked about things coming out of the break and more of Jalen Warren early and more Najee Harris late feels more and more to me like the way they should be splitting these reps. I felt like Najee, as the game went on, he got better. Like there were a couple of misreads he made in the first half where from the press box, we're like, you can't go that way. Like it was puzzling. But he just seems to warm into the game and use his physicality in a more effective way the more things go. And I think that's really big for him. And use Warren when you need a spark. And I think they're figuring out how to use those guys. I still don't think it's an overall great running unit right now, but that was as competent as they've looked. I thought in general they looked pretty strong in that game. Again, very weak defense outside of Aaron Donald. And I know that's a big asterisk, but this is the kind of unit that you should be having success against.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's flip the script and talk about the defense a little bit. Alan, I believe that we ended last week talking about if there was a way to kind of negate to the best of their ability Cooper Kupp from this football game. I know he had a couple drops, but just 2 catches for 29 yards. I think you take that every day of the week.
2 career games against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2 catches for 29 yards for Cooper Kupp. That's a bonker stat. That guy's an all-pro. Maybe borderline Hall of Famer, he's awesome. And 2 catches in 2 games. I think the credit here, a lot of it goes to Minkah Fitzpatrick. I thought his ability to be a two-way player where he would play up on him sometimes and play in man coverage, and then the rest of the time he would drop back. The Steelers played a ton of zone in this game underneath, and they did a really good job of it. And I thought they really minimized what he was able to do. Now, there was a bit of a pick your poison, right? I mean, all that attention that Minkah Fitzpatrick was paying to Cooper Kupp meant that there was a lot of one-on-one coverage from Puka Nacua, and he certainly took advantage of it. Man, Smitty, that's a guy I've liked going back to the Senior Bowl. I love what I saw from him in Mobile. He is just a player. And I think that was the very first time when I watched Patrick Peterson trying to chase him on that crosser where the thought entered my mind, maybe he just doesn't have it anymore. I don't know. Like, did you see that play? And you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where it was
yeah.
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, it was I don't know if it was how it would compare, but like similar thought to watching Nico Collins outrun him where you like almost felt bad. Like it was just like just no business even trying to run this guy down across the field like this. So I don't think he was put in the best position there either. But yeah, I think that obviously that's we're past those days of him being able to do that assignment.
In man, especially in
Yeah, yeah,
zone. I think it's a different story, right?
yeah.
I think he, although they screwed one up between him and Joey, and I'll probably never know who did it wrong and who did it right. But
Well, Cole Holcomb actually.
yeah, PFF said that was on Cole Holcomb, but the one to Nakua in the middle of the field, it was about 8 minutes left in the second quarter. There's a miscommunication. Peterson stays with his guy going down the field, and Porter passes Nakua to no one and is wide open. I asked Minkah about that, and he said, I asked him about, hey, did you kind of have to pick your poison between, Kupp and Nakua? And he's like, well, yeah, but like every Nakua play, basically, you can look at one of our guys doing something wrong and being like, there it is. Like it's not like we were leaving him open because that's what we were scheming to do. We were leaving him open because we were screwing stuff up, and he was the one that was taking advantage of it. So I think a mixed game for the defense. Probably gave up more rushing yards against that team than you would have liked. But the game situation kind of made it okay, right? As long as they weren't getting torched down the field in big chunks super regularly, they could deal with giving up some rushing yards. They had a number of those kind of bend but don't break drives, made the Rams settle for 2 long field goals that they missed. By the way, I'm taking this moment as an aside. Steelers fans, take 2 minutes today to appreciate Chris Boswell. He doesn't get talked about a lot. He's kind of taken for granted around here. I made him one of my dudes. He made 1 field goal. Well, you see what happens when you don't make them. And
right. Especially for this team, how important
Mar
it is.
is the whole margin of victory is accounted for by missed kicks. That's 7 points right there. You never see that happening to Steelers. Even when Boswell's having a down year for him, like he's had a couple of times, man, worth every penny he's getting for sure. So, yeah, I thought the defense did a good job of managing down and distance, managing game situation. The one thing that really bothered me, not so much that they let Nakua get open as often as he did, but the yards after the catch was really, when you let a guy make the catch and you're not even in position to make the tackle, that's really when the alarm bells start to go off. And that's what I was talking about with that Peterson play specifically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you could go to whether guys are in position or they are there and don't make the tackle. Joey Porter Jr., who's been really good in coverage, but I think a lot of the reason that we haven't been able, or the Steelers haven't put him on the field to the capacity that fans have been wanting him to, was kind of put on display in this game as well with his tackling issues, which I will say, and he came out and talked about it too, which I appreciated, like him openly saying, is it's not a willingness thing. Like he just needs to work on the technique of doing so.
Yeah, it's not like he can't tackle. It's just like he's still learning how to tackle kind of thing. And there's going to be negativity in that area as you bring in a young guy. It's not just that; it's zone too, right? I mean, they played a lot of man zone in this, where like most of the guys were in zone. You'd leave one guy on an island. They've got to find a way. Cover 3 is basically that way too. They've got to find a way to bring him along within the the realm of the defense in terms of doing things and get him outside of his comfort level, run support, zone coverage, and also doing it in a way that like I tweeted, I was like, it'd be great if they could just only play Joey Porter on man and only play Patrick Peterson on zone. Unfortunately, any amount of gain you would get from the increase in play of the individual out there would probably be offset by completely telegraphing your intentions when the guy steps off the sideline. So, they've got to find a way to just do a little bit more with him. He doesn't have to do a ton of that stuff. He just can't be a liability in those areas so the teams can't just run at him constantly. So the teams can't just assume it's going to be man coverage because he's on the field. And I think he'll become a very good corner. It would not surprise me if he gets his first start next week.
Yeah, well, I was just going to bring up the snap counts here in this game. Patrick Peterson played 67. That was 98.5% of the team snaps. Then Joey Porter at 53, Levi Wallace 49, Shannon Sullivan 22, and James Pierre with 2 snaps on defense as well in this one. But yeah, Joey Porter Jr. overtaking Levi Wallace in terms of snap count.
Yeah, and I think we'll say I thought Levi had a pretty tough game. Really, I mean, it wasn't all bad, but the touchdown right before the half was a real head scratcher of a rep there from Levi. I don't quite know what happened. He just never reacted to the ball. He was in good position, should have been an interception, and it turns out to be a touchdown. Can't have those. And so I don't know that you're going to see that distribution of those reps going forward. I think you'll probably see it more, one-third, one-third, one-third or something like that. But I think you're going to see Joey Porter continue to progress more and more towards being a full-time player.
You talked about that touchdown and the half, and then, the Rams come out of the halftime with the ball, and you feel like, okay, they really got a chance here to put their foot on the Steelers' necks. TJ Watt comes through with a massive play, but not necessarily the play that you would typically see him making. An interception where reads the quarterback's eyes, lined up in a very different position than you would typically see him in, reads his eyes on a target to Cooper Kupp, takes it almost back the other way and sets up the Steelers in position to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I wrote in my halftime hot dog thoughts, and the hot dog yesterday was a chimichanga because it's California. Ooh. And although Joey said there's a hot dog place out here I got to check out called Wiener Schnitzels. I don't know.
I've heard of it.
Joey said that's where I got to go, so probably going to hit that up later this afternoon. But yeah, as I was trolling on Twitter yesterday, In-N-Out Burger, fine, overrated. Don't come here for the hamburgers. Come here for the Mexican food.
Wait, before we talk about TJ, Wiener Schnitzels, I've been told really good chili. So I don't know if you're like a chili on a hot dog type of guy. But
chili dog is the thing.
Okay.
So that's
all right. Yeah.
We're going to try that here later, I believe.
All right.
But yeah. So, by the way, Joey from Bakersfield, I think we talked about that, right? We talk about him like he's a Pittsburgh kid, but he's actually born in California. Right. Spent a lot of his time growing up here. Cool for him to have a big game here in LA. So, wow, that was a long aside. Where the halftime thoughts were, cannot give up the next touchdown, right? Like just if they give up a touchdown before the half, then they give up another one on the next drive. That's kind of feeling like ball game at that point. Not only did they not do that, TJ Watt had an awesome play. We talked about hiding Minkah Fitzpatrick and how I felt like they need to do more of that. How about this? The Rams are in 3 wide receiver sets. And if you haven't looked at the play and if you haven't looked at my story at SteelersNow.com, I guarantee you could never guess the personnel grouping that the Steelers responded to that play. It's their base defense, 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, 2 corners, 3 corners, all 3 outside corners on the field, and only 1 safety. Minkah Fitzpatrick is the only safety on the field. I have never seen them line up in that personnel grouping ever. I've never even noticed them practice it. No idea what they were doing. Sean McVay says after the game, we were expecting single high. I'm like, well, there was only 1 safety on the field. So that was a pretty fair assumption by the Rams that they were going to get single high. No. Patrick Peterson drops into a half-field zone. Minkah Fitzpatrick slides over out of that center field look, and that makes a cover 2. And then you've got TJ Watt dropping into the, I guess that's the curl to flat zone of a cover 2 with Joey as the cloud corner outside of him and Cole Holcomb inside on the hook to curl. And Holcomb's got Kupp. Watt passes his guy to Minkah behind him and comes off and follows the rules. I mean, he's not doing anything special. Just follows the coverage rules, right? Nobody in my zone. Okay, go back inside and goes to double team Cooper Kupp, walks right in front of it. Talk about just like that's scheming defense, right? Like that's like Sean McVay's watching this film like, how's I supposed to expect him to do that? Like, and that's a great job by the Steelers coaches of knowing their own tendencies, doing something different, doing something a little weird, taking a risk where you give a big play, people are going to look at that and be like, what the heck were you thinking? Well, that's what the heck they were thinking. And, man, it just seems like it's only a matter of time every game until somebody steps up and makes a big impactful play for this defense. I mean, they're second in the league in turnovers per game. It goes way beyond that. Just the impact those turnovers have had. Pick six to open a game, make Cleveland play from behind the whole rest of the way, get them out of their comfort zone. Fumble return for a touchdown to steal that win. Joey Porter interception in the end zone. Offense takes it the other way for a touchdown, 14-point swing. Coming out of the half, they give up a touchdown there. This game is likely over. TJ gets an interception, hands a struggling offense the ball at the 6-yard line. Exactly what the doctor ordered for those guys. They punch it in, and the offense looks better from then on out too. It's incredible how impactful those, and really it's mostly just been Highsmith and Watt. I mean, he had the deflection on the one, but it's really been just the two guys that are making all this splash, and they just keep doing it week in and week out.
Yeah, even when it's not, getting sacks, like this play, getting this interception right here, but they were creating, I thought, a ton of pressure yesterday on Stafford too, in making the pocket dirty, and that's what we talked about too. Like Stafford, he's played really well this year, but you create pressure on him, he'll still turn the football over, and they were able to do that. Actually, instead of TJ being the one to create the pressure on that specific play, he's the one taking the football the other way. Were there any other, thoughts that you had in your mind about this game, maybe that we haven't touched on yet, whether that's offense or defense or special teams?
No, one of my special teams ran already. I think that's about it. That's pretty much, otherwise covered all the bases.
I do also agree with the sentiment though about Boswell. I mean, especially like for this offense, they can't afford. Imagine, well, I guess Boswell wasn't very good last year, neither was the offense, so that might not be the best point. But when you have an offense that's struggling the way that the Steelers have, it would really hurt if you couldn't rely on Chris Boswell either.
Yeah, I think so. Mike Tomlin had a great quote, said about not settling for field goals when they got opportunities in the red zone. He said, if you're playing against Sean McVay, field goals get you beat. I was like, man, I have to write that one down because, well, they settled for field goals many times in his career. But this didn't happen yesterday. 3 for 3 in the red zone. That's what they needed.
Let's keep it rolling into Jacks. Actually, we're 2 games. That's going to be an interesting week here on Steelers Afternoon Drive. The 2 games coming up within 10 days. So, but as far as this one goes, Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on a beach, Santa Monica, California, for the next
there we go.
10 minutes at least. Here, let's show the people exactly.
Yeah, let's get a better.
Let's see. You got the pier over there, right? Yeah, and then back there's Santa Monica, and then you got some mountains over there. I don't know if you can see those; they're pretty far off.
Kind of.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And we got a Coast Guard flyover that I totally arranged. 100%. It was all me. Totally arranged. Happening right now. What more could you want? You can also find me on Twitter at @Saunders_PGH, where you'll get my fast food takes and pictures of pizza and other stuff. And then, wow, that's crooked. And then SteelersNow.com. That's where the words live. Read them so I can get paid.
There we go. All right. I am Zachary Smith, PGH. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here so you don't miss any single thing. Leave us a comment down below. If you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review wherever that might be. You can find us on any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, etc., etc. We will be back tomorrow, but until then, for Alan Saunders, I'm Zachary Smith, and we will see you then. Bye-bye.